Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Jennifer. In this video, I'll be showing you how I made this Christmas trio inspired by a photo I saw on Pinterest. This is a relatively easy craft. The tools I used were a table and miter saw, drill, pin and brad nailer, and a sander. The supplies you're going to need are going to be glue and paint, and you can craft them from scrap, so the cost is minimal. This particular picture I worked from was linked to an Etsy shop, and the maker is charging $65 for the large tree, $55 for the medium, and $45 for the small, so it can be quite profitable should you decide to sell these. So if you're interested in making these for yourself, stay with me and I'll show you how I did it. I took a look at the lumber I had on hand and chose these boards. They're around 5/8 of an inch in thickness, but you can use any size you'd like. Mine were around 8 feet in overall length, and I cut them into manageable pieces before ripping them to 1 inch in width. You will need approximately 25 feet in total to complete all 3 trees. Next, I began by marking my cut starting with 1 inch and added a 1/2 inch to each subsequent mark until I reached 12 inches. So for example, I marked 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, and so on. To save time, I bound 3 slats together with painter's tape, as all 3 trees begin the same but end up with more branches the larger the overall tree. To account for the kerf or area of the material being eaten up by the blade, I cut to the left of my mark each time. I will provide a detailed cut list in the description for your convenience. Because the smallest tree ends with a 7-inch wide piece, I reduced my stack to 2 slats, then continued until I hit the 10-inch mark, or last slat for the middle tree. I then reduced my cuts to 1 slat and ended with a 12-inch piece for the largest tree. To keep myself organized, I brought the groups over in batches and laid them out on my table as not to get confused. There were a few areas that needed sanding, so I held my hand down on the group and gave them a light buffing. Once everything was smooth, I had to figure out the best way to attach them together. When taking a close-up look at my inspiration photo, it appears they all have a center hole with a large dowel running through the middle and separated by washers. That looked a little too complicated to me, and I didn't want each tree branch to move. I thought it would appear messy. So that each tree would look uniform, I cut a tiny 1/4 inch sliver as a spacer to center each branch I attached. Every other piece will alternate between facing straight forward and having a slight angle. I practiced with this, and the more severe the angle, the less stable it made the tree. I took my 1/4 inch spacer and made a tiny mark where I thought my angled pieces should line up. This required a little practice to get this technique down, but I used a square to help me line up the forward-facing branches and the line I drew on the spacer for the rest. I attached the pieces with wood glue and brad nails, keeping the nails towards each end, as you will need to flip the tree around and repeat. This does get a little confusing as time goes on, so you will need to pay attention. I marked a little F on my tree to signify the front to help keep myself straight. After adding a few rows, I found center and drilled a hole to accept my dowel rod. When I got closer to each top, I switched to my pin nailer as not to split the pieces. Once my trees were assembled, I gave them color with craft paint. This would go much faster if you had spray paint, but since I didn't have the colors I was looking for, I had to brush it on instead. I don't know the specific name of this green paint. It came from the Oops section at Lowe's. I started from the top and worked my way to the base, tipping it to get any parts that overhang slightly. The maroon color is dark red by Crafter's Closet, and I believe I purchased it from Dollar General. The smallest tree is a light cream. The color is called Toasted Marshmallow by Apple Barrel brand, and I believe I found that at Walmart. When everything was dried, I prepared the trunks. I liked the contrast of this dark wood and had enough to also cut the bases. The strips measure 1 inch wide, just like the tree branches, and are cut at 2, 2.5, and 3 inches in height. The bases are cut to 4 by 4, 5 by 5, and 6 by 6 squares. Again, I will include all of this in the description for your convenience. I sanded the piece slightly and applied gel stain, then a clear coat of polyurethane. To attach the stands, I drilled a hole through the entire trunk. This part I would do over again because it was difficult to center completely. I really needed drill press for precision. If I make these in the future, I will use dowel pins, one coming from the top of the trunk into the tree and another from the bottom of the trunk into the base. A full rod worked but was very challenging. This is the method I used to find the center of the base. Just make sure you draw your pencil line on the backs, as I accidentally drew one on the front and had to sand it down. I used wood glue and shot a couple pin nails into the base and trunk for extra stability. I trimmed the extra dowel length off with the help of a pole saw, and here is a look at the finished product. Let me know in the comments what you think and if you plan to make this craft. So I hope you enjoyed watching this project come together. If you haven't been following my countdown, please check out the other videos in this series, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to see what I have coming up next. You can also find me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook as well. As always, I thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.